All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Happy Monday morning to you. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. It is what it is. We're back to it. Today, we're going to talk a lot about font choice, typography, and really the inner workings of fonts. And I think it's something that's really important to talk about now versus later, because the choices you make when it comes to fonts are really critical to your overall design decisions. They play a big role in how you represent your ideas. So we're going to spend the day talking about fonts. And I'll go through kind of the basics of fonts and what makes up a font, et cetera, and then also why or why not you might choose a particular font. But then we'll also work in InDesign today to go ahead and kind of unpack how we use fonts, how we use type, how we work with type within InDesign. So that part will be a little bit more functional, but we'll talk conceptual to get started here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a second to get organized here. All right. And let's get this started. So today, like I said, is fundamentally about typography, which is basically fonts. So let's start with kind of a definition of terms so we have some even playing ground with which we can actually kind of talk about fonts. So we'll start with kind of that definition of terms. So first off, you're already familiar with some of this and you've experienced some of it in your Word documents or when you were a kid and you were trying to make your English paper a little bit longer or whatever. But we have things like style. So a font might have some different styles where it might have a regular, an italic, or a bold version of itself. And those can be used to kind of provide contrast or put emphasis on something particular. If we can, we want to choose those styles from within the font family rather than just having the operating system do it. And the question is, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? Well, you'll see, and we'll see it in InDesign today, many fonts have, like we could use Arial, for example. Arial might have an Arial italic or an Arial narrow or an Arial condensed, an Arial bold. Those are all versions of the font itself that have been designed for that purpose, where just going to the operating system and saying, edit bold or whatever is just making the font itself a little bit thicker. And so there's some style differences that we can see when we start to pay attention. So here's an example. So we have our font family. The operating system does this, right? We have the regular version first. So this is the regular, oops, there we go. That's the regular version. This is the italicized version right here. That's the bold version. And this is the italicized bold version. Now, that's what the operating system does. Alternatively, this is what happens within the font family. So, there's our regular font right there, but look at the italicized. Look at how different that version is from this version down here. It has to do a lot with style. So the style of the serif on the Z, for example, is very different. And it makes it a little bit easier to read. It also means that it's not uniformly thick anymore. So if we look at this part of the H right there, that's a little bit thinner than it is in the just slanted version of the same font. Bold is significantly different. It's much thicker, but it hasn't uniformly bolded everything. Not everything's thicker. They've kept certain parts of the lines thin, which helps with that overall look. And then our bold italic version right here is a combination of both. So this font version is significantly more attractive than the operating system version of the same thing. So we can look down here. Here's another example. And there's the font family version. So it's just a little bit nicer. So when we can, we're going to pick from within those. Weight. This refers to the relative lightness or darkness of the letter forms themselves. So we might have a light, we might have a medium or a regular, and we might have a bold. And you may have come across this before, where you're using a Helvetica light or something, and that is a style choice. Thin is even a little bit lighter than light. So this is the full spectrum, right? Where we start with the absolute lightest at the top here, that would be the thin. Then we do extra light, light, regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, black, and super, getting thicker and thicker and thicker as we go forward. And so you can really see, especially if you stand back and squint at this slide, you can see that gradient of change happening over the course of a font. And the best fonts will have these various versions available to them. The width of a font can vary by typeface, but it can also vary within the typeface itself. You might have a font that has a condensed version, which is basically where they're squishing everything together, or a compressed version. You might also have one that's an extended version where it's kind of spread out. You may have tried to use that to make your paper seem longer in high school. X height refers to the height of lowercase letters without ascenders or descenders. So that would be the top of an H, the bottom of a G, for example. That's an ascender and a descender. And the X height basically is what it says. It's the height of an X. And this X height is going to vary depending on your font. The cap height refers to the height of capital letters. The cap height is measured from the baseline to the cap line. And the ratio of the X height and the cap height matter on a font, especially when you're trying to pair fonts together. So we want to know what that relationship is between the lowercase letters and the uppercase letters. So let's look at it here, right? This is easy to determine what the X height is. We just look for the X, and there it is. That's the X height. The cap height is from that baseline right here all the way up to the height of a capital letter. Now, an ascender, this part, can be the same as a cap height, could be a little bit taller. In this case, it's a little bit taller. And the descender is right here at the bottom of the P, and that's going down from our overall X height. Counters. Counters are not what you have in your kitchen. In the terms of fonts, they're white spaces in and around letter forms, and they affect the ability to read or distinguish letters, to read what the word says, and the overall density. So essentially, think of it as if we have a really thin, light font at a really large size, it can be hard to read because there's so much space around it. It's called an open counter. If we have a bold letter and it's really squished together and really small, it's also hard to read. So we're thinking about how do we compare this? This slide worked really well when we were in person and I had it on a projector screen. On a computer screen, it doesn't really help too much. What you're seeing doesn't do too much. But the top one here has that open counter where there's a lot of space relative to the thickness of the letter itself. Down here, right, we have a closed counter where we have a bold font and it's very close together and squished. That theoretically makes it harder to read. Like I said, in this particular version, when we're looking at it on a computer screen, neither is extreme enough to really see. Small capitals are also important. They're complete sets of uppercase letters that are the same height as the lowercase letters. And you probably run across these before. A lot of times they're in titles, etc. But the purpose of them is to be able to use capital letters, or like think about if we were writing a scientific paper and there was a lot of abbreviations in it, you know, DNA or something like that, we should capitalize DNA. But if we used a full cap height for DNA and we were looking at our page, the word DNA or the little abbreviation DNA would stand out all over the page because it's so big. So we can use these small capitals to use that abbreviation or that acronym without providing unwanted emphasis on it. So a small capital is a capital letter that is the same height as an X height. Right? It's the same height as a lowercase letter. Lining and non-lining figures. So in the world of typography, figures are essentially numbers. When I say figures, I'm meaning numbers. And there's two different sets of numbers that can be used. We have lining figures where the width and the height is the same as a full capital letter. So the number is the same height as a capital. And then we have non-lining figures that share an X height, but then have an ascender or descender. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, what does this look like? Well, let's look at it in practice here. So on the left side here, we have our lining numerals, right? So this from there to there, that is the X height, right? Or excuse me, that's terribly wrong. Clearly it's Monday morning. That's the cap height. Down over here, this is the X height. So these are our non-lining, where we're using the X height, the lowercase letters. So let's translate this down into the paragraph. So let's look down here, because this is where you can really start to see it. So if we started to read this paragraph on the left, you could see that these numbers kind of stand out because they're all capitalized. They're all very large. We tend to draw our eyes to those letters. And it can interrupt the flow of the paragraph because we've got those big numbers that are showing up in contrast to the letters. Alternatively, if we look at the same set here, it's the same paragraph, same size and everything, using the non-lining numbers, you see that those blend in with the lowercase letters and they don't stand out. They look like regular words and they're not overly emphasized. So when we compare these two back and forth, you can really see that there's a distinct difference in choosing to use one set of numerals versus another set of numerals. So if you were writing an English paper or a history paper and you were needing to use numbers, I would recommend using a font that has non-lining numerals in it, non-lining figures, so that you're not providing unwanted emphasis. Alternatively, if you're writing a business paper and you really want to emphasize all of those numbers, then you might choose to use something with a lining number or a lining numeral or a lining figure because it provides that emphasis that you're after. So my point here is that there is very much a conscious choice and decision about, do you want this or do you not want this, as you start to develop. So these are all really important things for you to think about and understand when you're a big designer. So that was figures. Now, ligatures are also something that's important. And it's a specially designed character that happens when you combine letters. And the best way I can describe this is you probably naturally do it with your handwriting, even though you don't think about it. So I'll use my son's name. My son's name is Bennett. So if I were writing his name, I almost always put the two verticals for the T, and then I cross the T's together. It would be awkward to write his name and keep those T's separate. So this is something that we naturally do, and that is fundamentally a ligature. It's a combination of letters that otherwise would be separate, but get squished together. And fonts can do this if they're designed to do it. So good fonts are going to do this to deal with complications when letters would otherwise combine or look awkward together. So let's look at some examples. We have our standard ligatures up on top, right? So we've got FI, there's FFI, FFL, and you can see that there's some awkwardness that happens in these. If we look at what happens when the ligatures are turned on, right, the weird awkward dot for this I, that goes away and becomes part of the top of the F. Right? Likewise, we have two F's together, one slightly smaller, one slightly bigger, and that also combines with the I to form the top of the dot for the I. Notice also that the crossbar and the F's all kind of connect together here. Likewise, these two connect, and then this L there, those connect on purpose. So the font designer, the person who's responsible for designing this font, has thought about these standard collisions and how do we fix it? And if you start to pay attention to this, you'll notice that our computers are smart enough to automatically substitute these special ligatures when we put these letters together. Now, there are also discretionary ligatures. These are ones that don't necessarily have to happen, but could be designed into the font. Sometimes when you're using a display font, when you're using something that's meant to be like fancy handwriting, there'll be a bunch of ligatures that connect the letters together to make it look more like cursive or calligraphy or something. right? So to me, like, for example, the ST where they suddenly like connect together, that seems excessive. But depending on the font designer, you may choose to do that or not. Contextual ligatures down here at the bottom, this has to do with little subtle changes with how these letters start to come together. And you can see a little bit of highlighting in red about those subtle changes that have happened. Basically, they're spreading the letters apart just a little bit to make them more distinguishable so that you can kind of visually see the letters and recognize them a little bit more. So we've talked a lot about the mechanics of fonts, and that's great. And it's important to know the mechanics and to understand the mechanics. But the big part of font is really choosing the right font. So what is the right font, and how do we determine what that right font is? So there's some questions to ask when you're thinking about a typeface selection. What's the longevity of the piece? Is it trendy? Is it something that's going to exist only in the short term? Is it going to be on paper indefinitely? And do we want to think about what that's doing indefinitely? What's the purpose of the piece? What are you trying to do with it? Are you trying to be innovative? You run the risk, if you're trying to be innovative, that maybe it becomes outdated at some point. Is it traditional? Is it too conservative? Is it too casual? Those are all questions that are important to ask yourself. So I know we're coming up on a new Avatar coming out, but Avatar used this font called Papyrus in 2009. And it was amazing how as soon as Avatar came out with it, this font started showing up everywhere. Right? It was on all kinds of things, but it also became kind of a out of fashion font rather quickly. So it's trendy for a short term, and then it really didn't belong anymore. But yet designers continued to use it. Right? I was up in Tahoe hiking last year, and I ran across this little slide. It was like a sign in the woods. Why is Avatar's font, Papyrus, being used on this sign? Is that a good choice? Is it not a good choice? To me, it glares that it just doesn't belong. But that's something that's really important to distinguish. You know, you're making this sign and it's going to exist in the forest, informing, you know, people that are walking through the trail about the aspen trees. Do you want this font to be used? Is it an appropriate font to be used? Right? I have some issues. We haven't gotten to kerning and tracking yet, but if we look really closely here, the way that those letters are combined just drives me bonkers. It's the little details. All right. So think about that when you're choosing what kind of a font you want. So if you're struggling to pick your particular font, try comparing some side by side and think about things like readability, the emotion that's evoked, the legibility. And there's a difference between readability and legibility. We'll talk about that in a slide or two. And does it really reflect the needs of the client and the viewer? Remember last class in graphic design, we were talking about the client and the viewer. Does it reflect those needs? Are you picking the right font for that? So here's a great example. It's a quote from Charles Dickens, right? There's nothing inherently wrong about either one of these. The font's nice, and it looks good in both cases. There's a little subtle, fun fact that comes into this, and that is that this font was designed in about the right time frame when this piece was written. So it looks a little bit more thoughtful when you're choosing that font versus choosing the Times New Roman, which is the standard default font. So there's nothing wrong with the font on the left. The font on the right is just slightly better. And those are the kinds of things as a designer that you can choose to do. Right, here's another example of two fonts next to each other. Same passage of text, they read differently. I would argue that the one on the left is a little bit harder to read. Those are things that you want to think about. I just like this slide because I think it's kind of fun, where we start from the simplest fonts and we work our way all the way into the Old English at the bottom, and then down here we have all the kind of ridiculous cursive fonts. Just kind of a fun slide. This is another one that I enjoy, is the "so you need a typeface." I'm just got a question from Paul. Is my connection breaking up? I haven't had any notifications on my end. Everybody else doing okay? You're still hearing me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you completely fine.
Okay, now I'll just, I'd like to double check when I get those things. So Paul, I'm guessing maybe it's your connection because I'm getting lots of thumbs up. So thank you guys. So this is the So You Need a Typeface infographic, which is, kind of ridiculously fun, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to follow through. So, so you start here in the center and then you say, okay, what am I designing? I'm designing a logo. Okay, so I come down here to logo and then it asks me two questions, sans serif or a serif? Okay, well, if I want a sans serif, there you go. Do you like geometrics? Sure, yes, right? Then I come over here. Do you like Futura? No, I don't like Futura. Oh, there you go. I should pick Metro. So it's just kind of a fun way of working through it. You're writing a book. Here we go, a book. Are you completely in doubt? Sure, yes, I am. Oh, there we go. I'll use that. No, I'm not. I'll come over here. No. Let's come down here. Everybody loves Garamond. No. You want a sans serif? Is that the case? No. Okay, let's come up here. So you follow what I'm saying, where we just go through this little maze and you end up with a particular font. It's kind of fun. It's silly, but at the same time, kind of enjoyable. And it's not a bad way to come up with something. So you heard me mention there a little bit about serif and sans serif. And serif and sans serif is actually something that's very important for you to consider in your designing. So a serif typeface, the one on the top here, is what they're referring to with a serif is these little tails that the letters have. And you're saying, well, why is that important? Well, a serif, those little tails, help our brains distinguish the text and the letters a little bit easier. And they actually make it easier for us to read, especially if the font is small. A sans serif means we don't have those tails, right? So the bottoms down here don't have any tails. And it's a little bit harder to read. And so we wouldn't see this in print form as much. So if you pick up, and maybe you have a book lying around, if you pick up a book, like a fiction book, and you open it, it's gonna be in a serif typeface because they can shrink the font down and make it easier to read and fit more text onto a given page. If it's sans serif, it has to be a little bit larger. There's kind of a big push towards sans serif fonts recently, though, because of the web and the fact that we can have our fonts be a little bit larger. Our monitors are larger than a book. We have no restriction on how many pages something can end up when we're writing, and therefore we can have a little bit larger font, and it's easy enough to read. So you'll see a lot more sans serif online than you would serif online. You'll see a lot more serif in print than you will see sans serif in print. So here's two examples side by side. I would argue that the left side, I don't like the fact that it's a little bit more bold because I don't think it's quite as fair of a comparison. But essentially, the left side is a sans serif font. And I would argue that that's a little bit harder to read than the one on the right side, which is a serif font. What about if you want to combine typefaces together? Well, sometimes that's a good strategy, but you can also sometimes solve the problem by just using different styles within a particular typeface, bold, italic, and regular, for example. But sometimes you want to actually combine different types together. And so how are we going to do this, right? This is all within the family. It's the same family. Let's go to combining typefaces. There we go. If we're going to combine them, we should combine them so that there's a serif and a sans serif pairing. If you combine two serif or two sans serif together, they're going to compete with one another. They're too close to each other. So always think about, if you're combining typefaces, there should be a sans serif and a serif that work together. They also should always have similar X heights. So we should look here, that height should be the same as that height. This height should be the same as this height, whatever that height is. So one of the ways that I end up doing this is, if I want to combine typefaces, I take the primary font that I want to use, and then I Google combine, whatever it is, Futura with what font, and there'll be examples of what will work well with it. So you can always use Google to your advantage here. So here's some combinations where we've taken them together. Remember, all of the ones on the left side here are sans serif. All the ones on the right side are serif fonts. So these are serif fonts. They have the tails. So you're always looking to combine those together. We can also see very easily when they're together that the oops, helps if I can draw a straight line. Right, the X heights of these two fonts are exactly the same. Likewise, the X heights of these two fonts, assuming I could draw correctly, which apparently I can't, are the same. Then there's also display and script typefaces. We haven't emphasized those too much, but the display and script typefaces are the ones that are meant for emphasis. They're the, the silly ones, the ones that you wouldn't write your whole paper in because it's too difficult to read, but they might provide a good impact for the title, for example. So you're going to save those for headings or subheadings, or you want to use a calligraphy type font for an address or whatever it is. Sure, that's fine, but you're not going to write your whole English paper in a calligraphy font. I think your teacher would kill you. So designing with type, there's some stuff to think about. We want to think fundamentally about legibility and readability. And I mentioned this earlier, but there are two distinct things. They're both absolutely critical, but we need them both to make a good design decision. So legibility is the recognition of individual letter forms and their relative position to other letters. So legibility is about individual letters. Readability is how the typography is presented as a whole in words, in lines, and in paragraphs. So those are both really important. And we want to think carefully about those. I wish this was a little bit clearer as a slide, right? But when we're thinking about legibility, remember it's about the individual letters. So Arial, in this example, is pretty easy to read. Mesquite, however, the way that they combine together the fact that they're all capitals makes it hard to distinguish the individual letters and makes it a little bit harder to read. Readability is about words, lines, and paragraphs. So this is a good example of if you have a large block of text, a serif font with the little tails is much easier to read than, say, letter Gothic, that's the sans serif font. If we're talking about what content is, you might use impact as a font for the headline, something big, bold, but you wouldn't want to use it for your whole paper because it's hard to really read at that point. It's not appropriate. And then finally, context. This is another good example. We're using a kind of a formal font, Times New Roman, if we're talking about finance or business or whatever. And Comic Sans is much more of a casual font. Actually, Comic Sans, I would say, is the official font of elementary school. But it wouldn't make sense if the Bloomberg magazine came out and it was all in Comic Sans. It would be a joke. People wouldn't take it seriously. So you want to think about context as well. Objective representation. This is basically how we set up a framework so that it's practical, it's straightforward, it's clear and ordered. There's a structure. If we look at this kind of slide example right here, right, we have an easy title, and then we have kind of a subtitle here below it that's a little bit thinner. The font's still just as big. Then we drop the font size down, and we get our next level. Then we get little subheadings here, and then we get final content at the bottom. So there's a clear hierarchy. It's very ordered and presented in a practical and straightforward manner. Subjective is a little bit more conceptual. It's heavily focused on a theme or an idea, and it might not read as easily, but it might draw attention. So the example on the right side here, the font doesn't follow the same strategy with the hierarchy of the last one, but it's kind of chaotic and invites us to be interested in what it's saying. And so that might be a design decision. We want to think about macro perspectives. This is the big picture stuff, the overall design layout. What's the format? What's the overall composition? Is there a typographic hierarchy that helps us understand what the various pieces are, the elements are? That's the big picture stuff. Then we want to flip and look at the small picture stuff. So the micro perspectives. This is the attention to the small details like kerning, spacing, ragging to ensure that clean, consistent presentation. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, we haven't talked about kerning or tracking or spacing yet. We're getting to that right now. Symmetry and asymmetry. Do we have a balance page to page? This works more in like a book format. Or is it asymmetrical? Is there the chaos or the activity or the motion on one page that might invite us to be more interested in it? So alignment. This is the horizontal and vertical position of the typography within the margins on the page. And the alignment helps to create those visual relationships between the content that's on the page. Maybe it's all text, maybe it's text and images. How do we set that up? How do we align those on the particular page? And we'll go through some of the specifics here, right? We could use something that is centered in alignment. This works for a quote, for example, but it would be hard to read a long page like this because every start of the page jumps around, or every start of the line jumps around. We're over here, now we're in here, and we're back out here. So this is kind of hard to read. A justified, right, is where that left margin is all perfect, and we know where to start reading each line. Now, in this case, we're justifying both the left and, oops, sorry. Skip forward, no. Sometimes, sorry, hold on, we're going back. There we go. In this case, we're justifying both the left and the right. So this edge is clean, as is this edge. And what happens is the space in between words gets changed so that the edge lines up correctly. Alternatively, we could just justify to the left or justify to the right. That would then give us a straight line on the left and a ragged line on the right. This isn't a problem. We read from left to right. So as long as we know where we're starting, doesn't matter where it ends, we know where to go back and start. So this is actually the very most efficient way of reading. We don't have weird spacing in it. It's nice and consistent. This is the other side over here is justified on the right side, but it's kind of awkward to read because again, that first line varies. It works nicely if you're doing like a caption or something with a small amount of text. Typographic color refers to that density of a particular paragraph. So if we were to look at this image on the right and you kind of squint your eyes at it, you could tell that some of the text is a little bit darker than others. And so that might provide emphasis. That is that the density of the text can be its own element. It can live on the page. It can contrast with an image. It can contrast with other text. It can draw attention or not. It contributes to that overall lightness or darkness of the page. Type size is usually measured in points, and it's really used frequently as just a hierarchy of elements. You know, my title is at 18, my subheading's at 14, and my body's at 12. Or better yet, my heading's at 14, my subheading's at 12, and my body's at 10. You develop that proportionate set of sizes so that it's easy to understand what the hierarchy is. Case. This is also important. Lowercase letters are more readable than uppercase letters. Uppercase letters emphasize letter-to-letter recognition, which forces you to slow down reading. So there's a reason that architects, for example, write in all capital letters. They believe what they have to say is important, and they want you to concentrate on what they have to say, so they write in all capital letters, so you have to slow down and read it carefully. If you wrote your whole English paper or your whole history paper in all capital letters, it would be very difficult to read, and your professor would be very annoyed with you because it's hard to read. So that's something to be aware of. So here we go. For example, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word appear. The only important thing is that the first and last letters are in the right place, right? So this is hard to read because not only are the letters a little bit scrambled, but they're all capital. So you have to kind of concentrate on the letters. If we take this same paragraph and we change it so that it's in our normal split case, It's actually really easy to read. For example, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word appear. The only important thing is that the first and last letters are in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. Kind of interesting, huh? So our brains are conditioned to recognize what words look like, and that's part of how we read faster. And so we can jumble up the letters, but we're looking at the form of the word rather than the individual letter-to-letter recognition like here. Here we have to kind of concentrate, like important. Okay, well, I have to think about what is that word, right? Place. Oh, that's kind of a mess. Let me read that. The rest, yeah, it's a much more conscious effort than something like this. That tells you a lot about the readability of something. Kerning. Kerning adjusts the space between individual letters, and it corrects some collisions. We do this naturally. So if you were writing type, you would always stick the Y underneath the T. So my T would go here, my Y would go next to it, and that would be how I would write it. In the computer world, right, the T exists as its own space, and the Y would come over here, and you continue. Obviously, that's exaggerated. That's not really looking correctly. So we can, with kerning, we can shift this over so that it ends up underneath the T, like it should be. So we can see it here in example form. There it is lining up there, and here it is where they've stuck it underneath, like it should be. So you can make those corrections. Sometimes you have to make those same corrections when they're all capitals. So these are really close together, these are not really close together, so we can even them out. That is kerning. So it's space between individual letter forms. Tracking. This adjusts space between words, lines, and paragraphs. So I'm going to tell you a quick secret. You remember how you used to try to change your font to make your paper look longer? You used to do those kinds of things, add a little extra space. Here's your ticket. This is where you can change how long something is. Your tracking evenly adjusts the space between the words, the lines, and the paragraphs. It literally spreads out everything and makes the whole thing longer. It's used to improve readability. If things are too squished together, it's harder to read. We can use that tracking to just kind of elongate everything. It also can influence the typographic color. If you have something that's overly emphasized or too dark on the page, you can increase the tracking, and it's going to make it a little bit lighter because there's a lot more white space in and around the letters. Leading is essentially the space between lines of text. So if we have a tall X height or we have a heavy typeface, something that's bold, sans serifs, so things without the tails, they need more space in between lines than something that's shorter, lighter, whiter, or that's a serif typeface. So if you pick up a magazine, it's always going to be a serif typeface, and it's always going to have really small leading, space between lines, because they're cramming information into that page. Every page you print costs more money. So the more they fit on one page, the better off and the more money they're going to make. So here's just a really nice example of font choice, hierarchy, bold versus not bold, turning out really nice. Using that same vocabulary inside of this portfolio. Well, those are images. Those are just nice. Throwing in the bold version. So it's really carefully considered font choice. Another example, this one's a little bit blurry, so I'm going to skip over it, but it has a good hierarchy to it. I'm sorry that those are blurry. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm going to stop this, and we're going to jump over into InDesign. Let me pull up. Where is it? Come on. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Adobe folder here, and I'm going to open up InDesign. And while we're doing that, I'm going to pull up our exercise 110. This is what we're doing today. And I'm going to walk you through type in depth. But essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with some text from a Vitruvius. This is a a book that was written about architecture. We're going to use that as our sample text that we'll work with. And then we'll talk about getting the text into information. We'll talk about changing fonts, etc. Finally, we'll come down here to that word art part. So I'll talk about that. What you will need for this exercise is you're going to need this file, which is the 10 Books on Architecture, Chapter 1. It's a Word file. So you'll right-click on it, and you'll say download link as, download link file as, and you'll save it. If you're on Chrome, it'll be saved file as or save link file as. Okay, I already have it on my computer. So here we are. So this time, last time we used that CD preset. Today we're going to use a letter size page. So I'm going to pick the letter size page here. And there it is. Close the little splash screen. So we're looking at a whole piece of paper. Now today is all about type versus pictures, though we will do a little bit with pictures in just a second. And in order to create type, I'm going to need to use the type tool on the left side of the page here. So here is my type tool. And what I can do is I can draw a box with that type tool. And that box then will allow me to type into it. So I can type whatever. Okay. Now, certainly we could copy and paste your Word file into this, or we could type right in here, but it's not really designed to write in. This is about layouts. So in an ideal world, what we really want is we really want some kind of a document that has our text in it. And just like we did with photographs, we want to be able to go grab that text and bring it in and just deal with the layout. So that's where our 10 Books on Architecture Word document file comes in. So I have it saved here on my flash drive. If we go into my folder for today, right here, I have that Word document file. So once I have a text box, let's make that text box a little bit bigger here. I can fill this text box with text from that Word file. And I do it the same way that I did it with images. So I have the text box, I have it selected, and I'll go up to the File menu and I'll choose Place, just like I did with an image file. And instead of picking an image file, I'm going to go onto my flash drive and pick that Word file. And there it is. I'll go ahead and click on Open. And it's going to drop the text in. Now notice it says, hey, guess what? You're missing a font. It's currently unavailable on your computer. So because of that, this is probably because I did the original file on my Mac, and now we're on a Windows computer. Anyway, before I move forward, I want to replace the fonts. So I'm going to click on this Replace Fonts, and it's going to say, you're using Times Roman Bold and Times Roman Regular. What do you want to replace it with? So I could take Times Roman Bold, and I could replace it with, let's see here. There's probably a Times New Roman Regular, and I'll go ahead and click on Change. And then Times Newman, oops. Well, I think I said Change All instead of Change. My mistake. And let's change this one. I'm just going to change Bold. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and click on Done. And so when I did that, it should have taken the pink out of it. Let me go back one more time and double check why that didn't happen. Let me go to our window. And go to Type in Tables. Well, I may just have to manually change it. Why is it not showing here? All right, well, we'll just go ahead and manually change it. So as we start to work with this, let me go ahead. I'm going to select all. So I have my cursor in here. I'm going to press Control A to select everything. And then I'm going to change the font. So let me come over here and we'll change the font. And let's change to, that's just terrible looking. Let's get it to Times. All right, there we go. So I changed it. Now, what I have here is I have a text box, and it's filling the text box with text. At the bottom corner, I have a little red plus sign, and that means that there is more text than actually fits in this box. So one of the big advantages of InDesign is that if I were to resize the box, let's say make it bigger, it's going to fill the remaining space with more text. If I were to take this and move it over, I can fill it with even more text. So that text is continuous inside of the box. Furthermore, let's say that I wanted to set this up where there were 2 columns. I can have one text box here. I can create another text box next to it, like that. And I can actually chain the text from one into the other. So I can come here and I can click on that little plus sign. It loads up the remaining text, and I could place the remaining text into this text box. So it flows down this page, stops here, continues up here, and keeps going. And like I said, the advantage is that if I were to change this, the flow still goes through. So these are now related to one another, these 2 text boxes, which is a really powerful tool. So even if I were to go back and make an edit on my original Word document file, I can update that Word document link, and it'll update the text in here as well, keeping all of the layout the same. So the Word document file is fundamentally about the writing, and the layout is what InDesign is doing. So let's start looking at what options I have when it comes to fonts and setting this up. So if I double click to get in, I could select this chapter 1, for example. On the properties tab over here on the right side, we've already explored a little bit of this, but I have, first off, I have character. This is what the font would be. So if I were to click on that, I could choose any one of these other fonts if I wanted to use it. So let's say I liked that font, right? And you can see my font changes. Below where I have the font, I also have my, do I have a bold or a regular version of it? Okay, then I can come down here and I have some different options. I have my size. It's currently set at 16, right? We could say, you know what, I want that to be up at 18, or I want that to be up at 30, for example. Now, continuing here, this right here is our leading. This is our space in between paragraphs, or in between lines, excuse me. It's not really going to do much for me on this title, but it would matter right here in our paragraph 1. So if I were to change this, when it's in parentheses like that, it's set to automatic mode, but I could change it to be a specific value. So I could change it to be 48. Sorry, I have to actually select the text. There we go. I could change it, let's go to 30, and it's going to spread out my lines. If I went up to 72, they'd be even more spread out. Now, I could also put them where they're really close together. There's almost negative value, right? They're all squished. So let's keep it, we can go back to auto, which is ideally what's correct given the size of the text. Now, below that, we also have our kerning and our tracking. Right there and right there. Remember, tracking is about the whole paragraph. Kerning is about space between letters. So let's look at up here at the top. Actually, this font is it's pretty good. There's a little bit of extra space between the C and the H. And I could come over here to my kerning, and we could drop that so that those are just a little bit closer together. Now, I wouldn't do that on individual letters that weren't on a title, for example, because it's not worth it to do in the body of the text. But like I said, if we wanted the text to be a little bit longer, right, we could take our paragraph. Again, I've selected the whole paragraph, and we could come here to our tracking, and we could say, let's make that just a little bit longer. Let's make that a little bit longer still. And so what it's doing is it's evenly spreading out space between letters, space between words, and space between overall paragraphs to make the whole thing just a little bit longer. So that's my tracking. Now we also have the ability to adjust, for example, our paragraph justification. So right now it's justified left with a ragged right. We could do it centered. We could do it justified to the right with a ragged left. We could do a full justify where it's even on both sides. So those are all different options. We could also come in here to bullets and numbering. These already have numbers, but in reality, we could add our own numbers like that, and then get rid of the number there. And then this, for example, if we were to back it up, we could add a number there. The nice thing here is that we have bulleting and numbering options. So we could click on those options and we can change to bullets. And it shows us what the bullet would be. We could go back to numbers here. We can change under format. We could do Roman numerals. We could be lowercase letters, etc. So they're all built into it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say okay right now, and I'm going to turn off those. So we're back to where they're not numbered. And so we'll just keep it as its original text here. Sorry, that should have been 2. There we go. Okay, so we've worked on kind of the basics of this, but we can actually take this a step further. We can start to really get into detailed information about a particular character or paragraph. But let me come back up here. I'm going to get rid of this link because we don't really need to see that. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time with just this subheading. So let's say that I go through the effort and I change the size to something that I like. Sorry. And let's see, let's say that I like this. And then right here under appearance, I'm going to change the color to, I don't know, pink. And I've spent this time and I said, you know what, I really like what this looks like. And I want to be able to use this again. Well, this is one of the great things that our InDesign can do, is that once we've established a particular look, so in this case, I like this kind of pink look, I can save it as what's called a character style. And the character style saves things like color and font, etc. And so if I come over here on the properties on the right side here, I can actually see that right now there's no character style on this text, but I can actually add one. So right here, there's a little plus sign. I have my cursor in the text. I click on the plus sign and it's going to create a new character style, and I can name it pink text. Okay. Now, if I were to select another word somewhere in my paragraph, and I were to come over here and choose that pink text character style, guess what? It's going to use the same choices here that I created and put it in line with the text. So I could come down here. This is great for quotes, for example. If you found a quote, you could say, every time I have a quote, I want to change it to a particular color or text or whatever. So once again, I can come back to character styles and choose the pink text, and it's going to save my color and my font choice. Now, the big advantage here is that I can actually go in and edit that after the fact. So let's go into Window, type in Tables, and I'm going to go into my, why don't they have a character style? Hold on, they moved it around on me. There we go. We can go to Style Options. Sorry, they moved it around. And I can come in here and I can change things. So here, character color, you know what? I got tired of pink. Let's change it to be green. Now, when I change this, notice that it changes all of the instances of that character style. And actually, sorry.
Can you show again? How did you get to
Yes,
the
yes. So I didn't assign, there we go. Now the character style is assigned to that too. So I have it assigned in several, let me pick another spot here. I take this demonstrate word, I come over here into my properties and I choose my pink text. Okay. Now, if I go into my style options, oops, sorry, I have to, there we go. Let me go into my style options. So I click that little, see the little A right below my character styles? If I click that little A, I can go into style options. And then I can go through these options, and I could change, for example, the character color. Let's change it to red this time. And as soon as I say OK, all of the instances of that character style will update to this new color. Likewise, I could come in and I could say, you know what, I really don't like that font anymore. So I could come down here into, and I could say, I want it all to be, I'm picking this at complete random. Let's do a script. Sure, why not? Let's see what happens, right? And it changes those to be all in script. So I'm using the character style to make changes to every instance where I'm using that. So for example, I could set a character style for the number. So I could come up here, let's create a new character style. Let's call this numbers. Then I could go into my style options, and I could say every number I want to be in Broadway, and I want it to be 48 point. Okay, so I'll say okay, and then I have to assign each number to the numbers character style. There it is. And like I said, the advantage here is that I could say, you know what, I really didn't like that. It's too big. Let me go back to my numbers. Let me go back to my style options, and let's say under my size, I really didn't like that. It should all be 18 point instead, and it'll change it in every location. So just like we have our character styles, we also have something called a paragraph style. So the paragraph style is kind of like the character styles, but this time it refers to the whole paragraph. So if we were going to take let me take this paragraph 2 here, and we wanted to create a paragraph style for this, let's rename it. Let's call this body paragraph. Now, when we go in and edit the body here, it does contain information about our character styles. So we couldn't override a character style here. I'm not sure why it changed. I think I accidentally clicked. Let's go back to character style here, and let's go back to none. Come on. I love it when it doesn't do what you're supposed to do. Come on, go back to none. Yeah, the body paragraph adopted that character style. So let's go back to our formats here. Let's go back to a times. There we go. Sorry. Now, what we can do with our paragraph styles is we can create options that include things like indents and spacing. So we could do a left indent of a particular value. Now we can also check this box for preview so you can kind of see as you adjust. Okay, so we've indented it there. We could come down here and we could say, let's do we want hyphenation or not? So we can add hyphenation where it'll hyphenate words or not. We can look at other examples here. So we can go into our paragraph rules. We could have a border on the paragraph. We did justification. There's bullets and numbering, so we could set this up. So for example, I could go in and number this. The advantage is that once you've set up this style, every time you can take the style and apply it to another paragraph. So I could come in here and I could take this and I could change it to the body paragraph style. I could change this one to the body, and see it's adjusting the paragraph properties as well. So it's a way of kind of reusing styles over and over again is essentially what we're doing. So my purpose in this initial setup is for you to learn how to place the Vitruvius text into a Word, into an InDesign file like we did. But the other part that you might want to do is you might want to insert an image. So we could go back to our frame tool. We could create a frame like this, and we could drop an image into that frame. So let me go to File and then Place. And let's see if I have an image here. I might have to go back to last class. All right. There's an image. Now, obviously, in this context, the image is covering up the text. Well, the cool thing is that I can actually work with the text and the image to control how the text flows around a particular image. So if I select the image, we can come over here in properties and you can see there's a property for text wrap. So I can actually choose to have the text wrap around the particular image or skip over the image. In this context, because of the size of the image, it's probably better to skip over the image like that. And again, the advantage is that I can move it down and the text will move. If I were doing this one where it flows around the text, I think I need my image to be a little bit smaller. So let's say it's smaller, like that. And it's going to flow the text around that particular image. Now we have some awkwardness that's appearing right in there. I can choose a little bit of space around my text wrap right here. So if I expand, see those three little dots at the bottom? If I expand those, I can choose to basically have a buffer around my text so that the text won't collide with that particular image. And like I said, the advantage is no matter where you move it, the text is going to wrap around that object, which is the big advantage. So like I said, what I want you to do is I want you to be able to place the text. I want you to play around with the text options so you're used to seeing it. It doesn't have to look pretty. Actually, mine doesn't look very pretty at all right now. But I have played around with the options, which is ultimately my purpose today. I want you to save this, and to do it, we're going to save it two ways. First thing we'll do is go to File and then Save. This is going to save the InDesign file. So I need to put it into my folder for today. Let's create a folder. This is fall of 2022. And we'll save it. That's the InDesign file, so I can come back to it later. The file that you'll post, I'll go to File and then Export. I'm going to choose not a PDF. I'm going to choose a JPEG. And we'll save it in the same folder. I'll click on Save. And I, again, want to make sure that my quality is set to maximum and my resolution is set to at least 180, but I like to do 300. And then we'll go ahead and export. That'll then create a JPEG of this page for me. We can see it show up in just a second. It'll be right there. It's still working on the export. Okay, so once I have that, that'll be the JPEG that I end up posting. So I've saved the InDesign file, and then I've gone ahead and exported the JPEG. If you haven't finished your 2 hours of allotted time just yet, when you're done, let me pull back up this. Right, I have a part 3. This is word art. And I'm asking you to do a self-reflective word art. I'm not asking you to do one of the ones where they do like a portrait. But what I mean by word art is if we did a Google search for word art, it's an arrangement of words that represent you. Right? Now, it could be something like that. I don't know why I'm getting all religious examples here. Let's see here. Go to images. Right, you don't have to do one of these where it's like a portrait. Do one of the basic ones. Let's see here. Right, something like this. Right, where you're just working with your font choice and individual text box to be able to actually create some kind of a little composition. So again, that's if you have time. I want you to work on this. Again, our goal is to work for about 2 hours. So I want you to be very comfortable with fonts and font choice, etc. We will revisit fonts going forward. Go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, how can I do the structure that I'm supposed to write in it?
So what you'll do is you'll create a new So let me create a new document here. Okay, there it is. And you'll start like this is supposed to be self-reflective. So maybe I'd start with my name. Oops. And I would choose a font and size for that. Right, like that. Let's shrink that text box down. So I have that. Then I come back with my text box and I'd say,
Yeah, but the words, it
right.
seems like in a structure, like a fish or head or something like
You
that.
don't. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a composition. So you would start to put them together. It doesn't have to look like anything. There are lots of people. You could even rotate this. See, I rotate that, and I'm just going to kind of compose things that are about me. That would make my.
We need to do it in a structure.
It does not need to be in a shape. So just
by
kind
the
of
way,
a blob.
When you wrote it now, how can I see it in the right way? That it doesn't need to, you know, from the up to down, from above.
When I rotated it, sure. So if I create the text, whatever it is, let's see, architecture. Right, I create the text. After I've created it like this, I can shrink the text box down so it kind of fits the text. And then if I move the mouse toward one corner, see how the mouse turns from an arrow into kind of a rotate arrow?
Yeah, but I mean to change the letters. So they want the letters itself, if I want to see them.
Right, okay, so if you want to change the letter themselves, just double click to get back inside. Oh, I just froze. Try that again. Sorry, my mouse, did my mouse lose connection? There we go. Yeah, we'll double click to get back inside, and then you can select the text and change it to whatever you wanted it to be. It could even change the color, for example.
No, I meant change the direction of the letters. When you turn the word from, so it will be from the.
So going top down, for example.
Oh, you want to be able to write it so that it's like letters going down.
Yes, yes.
Ah, gotcha. Sorry, I just totally
didn't.
Yeah. Yes, no, it's okay. We haven't really gotten to it yet, but it will be done in the Type on Path tool, which is not the type tool. So what I need is I need a line or a path to draw on. So if I had a vertical line, right, like that, I can then use underneath this type tool, I can use the Type on Path tool. And what that does is it allows me to type on whatever the path would be. So hold on, I'm getting there. So let's say I wrote architecture. You don't like this orientation, so we need to change our orientation of our Type on Path tool. And where did they hide that? Hold on. Type on Path options. Now, why it would be hidden there? Okay, so I went to type on path, and then options. And here we go. This is where I can choose how I'm aligning what I'm doing. So we could change, let's see, path to center spacing. It's right here. It is stair step, and it's going to write going down on the path. So I need to increase my spacing. Let me select it. I don't do this very often, so let me select my text there. Layout, type on path, options. And so we want to do the stair step. And we want to increase the spacing. Why is it not doing that? Check the bottom. Okay, so we're going to have to say okay, and then we'll have to take this text and adjust our tracking. Let's see if we can spread that out. Come on. No, it's not doing what I want. Well, I'm going to have to come back to you on that because it's not doing what I want it to do. It's squishing all the letters together, which it shouldn't. So why is it doing that? Well, give me a second to try to sort out exactly why it's doing it. Like I said, I don't do this very often. But it should have. Yeah, that's not affecting it at all. Should be stair step. But why is it not? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at why it's not why it's crushing those letters together. And I apologize. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
No, no problem. No problem. I don't like it when I don't know the answer and it doesn't work the way I want it to. But that being said, it is 9/11. So I should let all of you go. We do have our check-ins this week. And so I'll see if I can't figure that out and we can talk about it during check-in. Let's do our first check-in at, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's start at 9:20. And we'll go from there. Anybody have any other questions before I let you go? Perfect. All right, I'll see you back at 9:20. Thanks.
Hello,
Hi, Henry.
how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I've been working very hard. I wasn't able to, submit my assignment and everything. So just I've one main question I have, you're going back and forth to your file and taking all those things that you want, but we don't have access to the same files as you're going back and forth to. Do we or not?
I gave you the file. So if you went, let me share my screen here for a second. On the, hold on, I got to pull up my. So on exercise 110, the Word document file that you need is right here at the bottom.
Okay, I'm not talking about this particular one.
Okay, you should have access to anything you need. You should have access to at the bottom of the. I always have a download section at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what exercise was it specifically, and what were you missing?
The last assignment that you had to embed some image into the streets and then to the nature. So there was a two-part.
Yes, that
there
one.
was one the image, and then the other one was the shadow. Where did you get those?
Those were created in exercise 107 when we cut out the people. So you should have people that were cut out from this exercise 107. So you should have those two people from 107 to use in 108.
Yeah, but I had my own
Correct.
images.
And so you use your own.
Yeah.
Just like I used my own. But if you want mine, you can have mine. I just didn't put them in, but I'll send them to you. That's fine.
Okay. But would you please, because.
Sure. I'll send them to you. I'll send you an email right now with them. Okay.
All right. So I should be leaving now. I'm in Tahoe. So.
Oh, you're up in Tahoe right now?
Yeah, I won't be able to join your
We just come on Wednesday, but I'll send you those files right now.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
All right. I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, I think I've got all of you checked off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on one second. Let me just double check. Yes, I have all of you, so that's good. We're cruising right through the semester real quick as a way of happening. So today we have an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about your assignment 102s and how you're combining images together. We also have an opportunity to ask any questions about InDesign if there's something that's not making sense yet and you want to go over it or talk about it. I'm happy to kind of go through it. And then third, if you have a question on your grade, if you want to talk publicly about it, that's fine. Otherwise, we can wait and do it after, or we can schedule an office hour if you want to know more. Obviously, you guys got your first grades back on your first assignment. I did write comments, so hopefully you feel like you have an understanding of where you were and what was good and what was bad, etc. I know I've had a number of people that have had questions on the peer reviews. The peer reviews should have been assigned to everybody. If you click on the assignment, you should see your assigned peer reviews. If you're struggling to find them, of course, I can help you through that. So we'll start. Sylvia, you have your hand raised. You got a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I don't have an access to a computer until 2 p.m. every day because I'm borrowing from a guy that is going to school as well, and he needed a school. So can we like schedule a meeting? Do you have any time after 2 that we can figure these things out?
Yes. So on Mondays, so today I can set up something after 2. That's when my office hours are. Can you do it today?
Yeah.
Okay. So like what time works for you after 2?
Can we do it like to make sure like 2:45?
Sure. Let's do it at 2:45.
Okay.
I will send you a Zoom link for a 2:45 meeting, okay?
On like Canvas?
So it'll be like a separate Zoom link, and I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you via Canvas, and I'll also send you an email with it.
All right, perfect. And so can I leave now and then?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
No problem. No, I'll see you then.
Bye. Thank you.
No problem. Jesse, you popped in a second late, so I'm getting you. And Annette, I think there you go. I got you too. Okay, Fareed, you have a question.
Yeah, so when I think it was the exercise 109, the album cover. I had linked a file from Photoshop. Well, I had a JPEG.
Okay.
And then I opened it in Photoshop. I was editing some reflections from it was through glass, so there was some reflections. So I cleared those up. I went back to InDesign and then I tried to relink, but nothing I was doing in Photoshop was reflected in InDesign. Then I don't know what I did. I think I basically deleted that Photoshop project or file, opened it again as a JPEG in Photoshop, did it, and then this time when I relinked it, everything I did in Photoshop was showing up in InDesign as long as I relinked. I don't know what I did wrong the first time.
I'm betting that you ended up saving it as a Photoshop file, not as a new JPEG.
I thought I saved it as a JPEG, but yeah, it's possible.
If I had to guess, it would be somehow in the saving from Photoshop. That's where something went wrong and why it wasn't updating. But without looking specifically at it, it's hard for me to know. But that would be my guess. And that's why it worked the second time, is because it was saved correctly or exported correctly. Okay.
Yeah, I can't go back and do whatever I did wrong.
That's the hard part about doing this, in Zoom now, is you're working and then you run across a problem. So I do my best to answer it.
Okay.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. Who else do we have questions from? You have your hand raised. Go ahead.
I will be happy to get your review for the assignment that is due for today.
Sure. Sure. Do you want
But
me to
and
enable?
after, if there are any, I will wait after all the other questions. It's okay.
Okay. Are there anybody else have any other questions? A lot of crickets. Okay, sounds good. You guys are free to go if you want. I have you checked off. If you want to stick around and go through assignment 102 and add yourself to the list, I'm happy to go through it with you as well. So I
Thank you,
think I have
Professor.
screen sharing enabled. You should be able to go ahead and share.
To share? Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's enabled. Yeah.
I was trying to make her fly, but I don't think I managed to do it so well.
Oh, I think it's pretty good. You're channeling Stranger Things, right?
Yeah, we just finished it.
Yeah, I know. It was a good season. It was a good season.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think so. You know, one of the biggest challenges with these kinds of things is always, you know, how believable can you make it? And I think you're succeeding well. The place that you're succeeding the best is actually down at the feet, because of the way the light is shining on her foot. It feels like she's there with the light shining on it because of kind of the dappled shadow and whatever. I think the hardest part is kind of up in the hair, maybe. And I think that might have more to do with the original photo, because it's just not quite as clear as its surroundings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's, based on what I'm seeing here, I don't think it's worth redoing it. I think you'll do just fine when it comes to grading. But if I were to, and this is one of those important things, if I were to, you know, start fresh, I'd say that the biggest thing that you could improve would be the quality of the original image
Okay.
in the hair. But I don't think it's worth redoing, because I think you got there. I think you did a particularly good job at removing the ladder or step stool and the shadow and whatever. I think that worked really nicely.
Better. Yeah. Okay.
That's the highlight of this whole thing, is how well you did there.
Okay. Okay. So thanks.
Yeah.
Another
Oh, I
question.
go with it. Yes, go ahead.
Regarding the peer review, I didn't saw that in the beginning, and only when I get your review with the others, I saw that other people review mine. So I looked for it, and I did. So I did the review, but I think 2 days later.
That's okay. The timing doesn't. I'm not worried about the timing. I just want you to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Because it wasn't on time, so I'm sorry.
Well,
about
and I didn't realize last semester when I did this, it automatically assigned it like it was supposed to, and then this time I had to go in and actually say, click a button that automatically assigned. So I think Canvas might have changed something. So I don't think I actually had them available right away anyway.
Okay. So,
but it's okay. If you did it, that's great. And hopefully you got comments back from other people as well.
Yeah, I got.
They were helpful. That's the whole point. That's why I'm having you do it, because I think it's good for you to get more than just me giving you feedback.
Okay. And third question, I still finding it hard. I have a hard time with the cutting of the figure. You know, sometimes when you do it and you just click on something and you add if you add a mistake and you click on something and then you add something else, it's hard for me to do it, because when I did a mistake, I need to finish everything and then fix it instead of doing it in the same time.
So there's no easy solution other than more and more practice, you know, and this is one of the unfair advantages I have as a teacher, you know, doing this, because when I demo it, I make it look easy because I've done it for 20 years. And, you know, it's the experience that I have. When we get, the perfect example of this is when we get to the pen tool in Illustrator, because I'll do the pen tool demo and I'll make it look so easy, and you guys will start on it and you'll pull your hair out because it's difficult. It's just hard. And the only solution is more practice. So I don't have an expectation, and you'll see this in your assignment 102 is a perfect example. I don't have an expectation that everything is going to be absolutely perfect, because you guys are learning, and that's the point. And so I'm not going to penalize you for.
No, I don't care about that. I just
along.
want to do it right. So the
exactly.
only thing that you do is with the shift and the alt. After
the shift and the alt, and then so you can do the shift and the alt, and then if it depends a little bit on the mistake, But if the mistake, for example, if it's in the hair, you kind of just have to keep working with the shift and the alt and whatever. If it's some other place, let's say it's like in somebody's shoe or in their leg, where the reflective thing in their leg makes their leg transparent or something, you can actually just push forward and then fix that in the mask afterward in Photoshop.
Okay.
And sometimes it's easier to fix it after the fact by painting in the mask than it is to go back and try to deal with the selection again.
Okay.
And like I said, that's a piece that comes a lot from practice, where you start to see like, oh, I can fix that easier later rather than try to fix it now. And you don't necessarily, as you're learning, you don't always see that right away until it happens once and you're like, oh, I fixed it really easy there. And then you say, oh, next time I'll be able to fix it easier there, so I'm not going to worry about it. So that's the kind of thing that just comes with practice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry I failed miserably at your vertical text today. I have to sort that out.
First of all, I'm sorry that it's hard to understand me. It's my second language. And
No.
I'm stuck with word, and
It wasn't your language. It was me not getting it. You explained it perfectly clear. I was missing what you were asking.
Yeah, I tried to do it in other course, and I saw some videos in YouTube, and it was really hard to do it right. So
yes, the vertical text is hard to do right and to get it to align. The type on path should allow you to do it correctly. Why it was squishing my letters together, I don't know. It's bugging me.
But then to organize it correctly in the page, I was struggling with that. So
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's vertical text is hard.
Okay. To be continued.
To be continued, and I will work on it and see if I can't figure it out.
Okay.
All right. Do I have any other questions?
Can I also? Oh, sorry.
Sure, Annette, go ahead. You jumped in first, so let's do you.
Okay. Can I also show you my assignment?
Sure.
Okay. Do you see it?
I do see it. I do see it. Sometimes these little creative ones are kind of fun because you don't see them at first, and then suddenly you see it, and that's the enjoyable part of it.
Okay.
I think I would spend a little bit more time on the transition. Let me request remote control just so I can point it out. Okay. Can you see me move the mouse? Can you see me move it? Maybe not. How about now? Can you see me move it now?
No.
Okay. I would spend, let's see if I can, no, it doesn't like me. Okay, sometimes it doesn't work well. See down in your noodles, the edge, the left side of the finger?
Oh, that's a nose, but
It's a what?
it's a nose.
Oh, it's a nose. Okay, I get it. The how do I describe it? See the bottom corner of the nose, the lowest point?
Here?
I can't see you move the mouse now. Yes, now I can see it down in there. There's something about that sharp edge that stands out, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think I would like put the noodle that's behind it in front of it a little bit more or something, just because it's basically, it's primarily the left edge starting at the bottom corner that's just kind of awkward. It seems like it's cut in a weird way, where the right edge is working really nicely, the way that the noodles kind of envelop it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like we're not seeing the edge, where we're seeing a lot more of the edge. So I think I'd try to weave that into the noodles a little bit more.
Okay.
But I like it. I think you're totally on the right track, but I think I would concentrate on that lowest corner. That would probably be the best one to focus on a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
The rest of the image is fine?
I think so. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I don't see anything that's the only part that I think I'd pick on.
Okay. Thank you.
So what do you think? Did you have questions about any other specific parts?
Because originally I was only gonna do the eyes, and then I
Mhm.
thought it looked empty, and then I added like other parts too. But like the lips is like it. I don't know, because this one the eyes make sense because they're both circle, and then
Right.
the nose is hiding in the noodles, but the lips are just there.
The
It's
the
just on
interesting
top of
thing
the
about
nose.
the lips for me is and I think part of the reason they work is because it looks like it's part of the meat. It looks like it's like a weird, like, you know, when you look at clouds and you see like shapes in the clouds or whatever, this to me looks part of like the cut of the meat, and you don't really notice the lips, but then you kind of see the lips and you're like, oh, that's pretty creative. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
I think it blends in so well with what the cut of the meat is that I don't see that might be my favorite part of the whole thing,
Oh, okay.
because it's like a weird, like it could just be the meat, but it also could be lips. It's like it's like tricking you, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay.
I think my least favorite part is the nose.
Okay. I'll fix that.
But I think if you tweak the edge a little bit, that would improve it a lot. But I actually really like the lips, and the eyes are really subtle and they're well done. And I agree with you that they're round, so it works. You know, it inherently works because of the shape, where the other ones are much harder to work in.
Yes. Thank you.
Don't change the lips. Leave me those,
Okay.
please. All right.
Okay. Yes.
Perfect. Somebody else had a question.
I have a question, but it doesn't have anything to do with any exercise or assignments.
Okay. Well, since nobody else seems to have any questions, let me. Why don't you go ahead and ask it? Let's see. Declan, I'm trying to get you crossed off here too. Okay, I got you crossed off. Go ahead, Paul.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to restore some photographs that are over 50 years old, and I just would suggest appreciate some suggestions if you would.
What do you have them in? Have you scanned them already?
Yeah, let me just show you if that's okay.
Sure.
If I can get the right one. Oh, here they are. All right, so this is a photograph. So this is what it was originally, and so I cut out the kids. And my challenge is, how do I lighten this dark area? Because it comes out black when I print it.
Gotcha.
I mean, I can clone stamp the white spots out.
Yeah. No, I got you there. Let me see. Do a levels adjustment layer. I just want to see what the histogram looks like. So go to layer, new adjustment layer, levels.
Yes. I have to move. Okay. Thanks.
Can I request remote control?
Please do. Absolutely.
All right, let's see if it'll let me do it today. This is my levels. Okay. Okay, so when you do this, obviously the background gets darker, right?
Yeah.
But it greatly enhances the people. So sometimes what you can do, and again, I'm experimenting live on you, sometimes you can also skew where the mid-tone is. So I concentrated on teaching you, you pinch the ends in, right?
Correct, yeah.
But sometimes you can also through this, adjust where the midtones are in a particular
Okay.
image. So
Right.
we had it there, but we're pushing the midtones a little bit brighter, which should
Oh,
brighten the background.
Oh, good. Yeah, because now I can see the leaves a little bit better.
Right. So we went from there to there, where we're getting a more richness of color, but we're not lightening the foreground color. Does that make sense?
Understood. Yeah.
So sometimes that's a good strategy. Sometimes you can mess with curves. Let me look. Though in this case, I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of it. We'll see. Sometimes, right, what I'm worried about is the lower part of the image down here, because I'm worried about the leaves. And see how I'm trying not to adjust. So when I do that, it just gets a little bit too washed. And that, we're starting to lose too much detail. And this is where the experiment starts to come in. You know, where I'm trying to get more, but I want enough definition in those leaves, like you said, you know, to be able to do that. And this may be a trial run to see printing that versus printing that. I like on the screen, I like this one a lot better, but you're going to have to give it a shot and see how it prints.
I notice when I print, it doesn't look like what's on the screen.
You know, back when we were in person, I pushed every year for, please give me the proper equipment to do monitor calibrations and allow me to teach printing calibrations and stuff for dealing with printing. And they just never would. And so here we are, and now on Zoom, where I really can't do it anymore. But there is always a disconnect in my mind between what you see on the screen and what you print. And there is a process by which you can fix that problem, but it's a pretty involved process. So rarely does anybody actually deal with it. So what I would do is I would try printing this, see if it's better than that, try printing this, see what that one turns out, and go from there. It's kind of it's a hard one.
Okay. Thank you for your unrelated question.
No, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. I don't mind. Unrelated questions sometimes are more fun.
Okay.
Declan, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I sent you a message in direct message in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good. That sounds good to me. I'll waive, like I said before, I'll waive any of the penalties. So just buckle down.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I have full plans to throughout this week.
All right, sounds good. Let me know on Wednesday if you need to come back on Wednesday because you run into a snag or something. Let me know, and we'll go through whatever problem might be.
I will be sure to do that. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
Have a good one.
See you on Wednesday.
See you then.
Professor, can I get some feedback on my assignment 102?
Sure, happy to.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. The pencil drawer in your arm. That's a good one. I haven't seen that one before. You know, one of the fun things about this assignment is seeing what you guys come up with that is different. Because I'm so, you know, I've seen a lot of things. I've done it for 15 years. I've seen a lot of things. I have never seen this one. This is good. This is good. I like it. I like the overall composition a lot. I think if I were picking on one, you know, if I had to pick one thing to improve, do you see by the pencil eraser, there's an extra little black
right here?
dot? Not on the end, but on your arm, along the length of your arm.
Oh.
If you come down, see that little black dot right there?
Yeah.
If you did just a whisker of a clone stamp over that, I think it would improve, because
right here?
That's the, yes, right there. That's the one little piece that to me is killing the believability of it.
All right.
But other than that, I like it a lot, and I like the creativity of it a lot.
Okay, I don't know what I did.
I would do like a tiny bit of clone stamp right in that, and just cover that up.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, and then this is excellent. This is a fun one. Good job.
Yeah, I felt like it was a little bit too, not too bland, but like I feel like it needed something more. But
No,
it
I don't
looked
think so.
good like
Sometimes
this,
on
but
these, keeping it simple is good. I think, there's a tendency for, like you said, like, oh, it looks a little bit bland, so I better add some more stuff. And then all of a sudden it has too much to it.
yeah.
And there, I think it's simple. Sometimes keeping it simple is the best way of doing it. Where you just have this one little like, oh, here it is,
Mhm.
which is kind of fun. No, I like it. Keep it like this, tweak that one little black spot and go with it.
Alrighty then. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right. Well, if any of you guys have questions or want me to go anything, just interrupt me. I'm just going to keep working on some grading and whatever in the interim, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Professor,
Yes.
I kind of need help with the bulking. Like, when you made those those few words that were bulk in the paragraph, and you make them and you added like a color to them so they can stand out.
Yes.
I try to do it, but then it's not like see-through. Let me see.
Yeah. I was going to say, share your screen so I can see it.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like gone.
Weird. Okay. Select it again. And then click on your fill color on the right side under appearance. Click on that. And then change it to, pick any color right now. Pick like red. And then click off, and let's make sure that it's being seen. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
so
thank God.
for some reason you were changing it to like white or really, really light gray.
Oh.
And that's why I was doing it. Now, wait, hold on. Before you do it that way, go back to where it says knowledge and select it.
This here?
Yeah. And then on the right side, under your text style, click on the button for character styles.
On the right side, character styles.
Yeah, up toward the top. Up toward the top.
Oh, here.
Right to the right. That's paragraph. Click on character. Right. Then click on the little plus sign below that to the right there. Okay. So now it creates a character style for that red text. So it doesn't matter. You can leave it named character style 1. I don't care.
Okay.
Okay. Now see where it says scholarship in the text.
Scholarship. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Double click that.
I'll make this
red. The
red.
whole thing. And then under character styles, change it to that character style 1. So don't change the color this time. Change it to character. No, yeah, there's a little drop down right there. Perfect.
Right here?
It doesn't look like. Click on the little down triangle again. It could be just zoom. There we go. Click character style 1. There you go. See how it turned red?
Oh.
Okay. That's because you assigned it a character style. The advantage there is that now you can edit the character style and change the color, and it'll change all of them at once rather than have to go in and change each time.
That's good.
So that's the purpose of the character style.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, it's a lot to take in.
Kind of, yeah. So getting used to the
InDesign versus
yeah.
Photoshop. I know. And just when you start getting comfortable with InDesign, we'll move to Illustrator. So
Gotcha.
There's a lot to cover in the class. So
Right. I don't doubt that. So, Professor, it's like this, and then what do we do for the text again? I was trying to do it along with you during class, but
yeah,
I got messed up some things, and then you were already like a few steps ahead.
It's okay. That's okay. It's really just familiarizing yourself with all of this, actually. So changing fonts, changing the paragraph justification. There's no right or wrong answer to any of it. I just want you to basically understand what all of the text-related options tell us on the right side.
Oh, like right here.
Yes. So like play around with the paragraph, understand what centering the paragraph does, those kinds of things.
Okay. And just submit it.
And then just submit it. Yeah.
What about this one, the self-reflective? Do we just set a new file?
Yeah, it's just a new file.
Okay. This is the paragraph styles you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then you can modify it. When you modify the paragraph style, then those are like presets. But when you modify the paragraph style, here, select a paragraph.
Oh, I have to highlight it.
Yep.
I forgot. Go to add.
You could create a new one. Yep. And then under paragraph style 2, we can edit it. So double click on paragraph style 2. Right click on it instead. Edit paragraph style 2. And then here are all your options, which is like an infinite number of options, but you can start to see the various things that you have control over. So indents and spacing, for example. Right, you can choose to have a left indent or a first line indent or whatever.
Okay. Hmm.
I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in like 5 minutes.
Okay. Professor.
Yeah, go ahead.
For this one, I try to do the text like a little bit more cursive, but I don't really know how to do it. I go to paragraph styles. Let me see. I go to paragraph styles. Let me see. I need to do this one. Hold on. Is usually for the paragraph styles.
Uh-huh.
Which one do I do to make the style that you did during the class? It had like
Oh, where the words were more like cursive or whatever?
or yeah, like had the more like those lines in the, like, you know how like an L has those two. I'm really bad at explaining things.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you mean. That was just a change in the font. So it's actually not in the character style. It would be under the, it's not in the paragraph style. It would be under the character style where we had assigned the red. So hit cancel on that window. Go back to the character styles. That character style 1, we're going to edit that one. Oops. Control Z. So you undo.
Yeah.
Okay. Then go right click on that character style 1.
Wait, actually, hold on. Let me do something for a second.
There you go.
Go
Yeah.
back here.
Now right click on it.
This whole thing?
No. Just where it says knowledge. That one. No, not on the knowledge, but on the character style 1. Right there. Right click there.
Mhm.
And then we want to edit the character style 1. And then I had changed the font. So under basic character formats, I had changed the font family, and I don't. Let me look it up real quick. What I picked, I don't remember. It was Script C was the font. So you'll
see, right?
Script C. So maybe you don't have it.
Yeah.
Go back up. Scroll back up.
Oh, maybe it's all the way up.
Yeah, it'll be there. Scroll down. Keep going.
It says C, right?
It starts with an S. Script C.
Oh, so an S.
So keep going down. Stop right there. Script. You have just script MT bold. This is one of the challenges with computers. They have different fonts. So try the script NT bold.
MT bold.
Script there. That one. Try that one. See what it looks like, and say okay.
Wow.
So I mean, it might not be exactly the same, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Definitely gonna do a different one though. That's because that is difficult to read.
Yeah, but yeah, the point is you understand.
Mm-hmm. Let me try this one. Huh. Professor, is this all right?
Oh yeah, you could turn that in. It's perfectly fine.
And this one too. I tried to do it for this one.
Yeah, that's fine. Totally okay.
Thank you so much. Now I need to do a midterm test.
Oh, well, you go concentrate on that. That's probably more important. This might be more fun though, right?
It is actually. It's a lot more enjoyable.
Well, that's the good news about school. The further along you go, the more you get to do the stuff you like doing.
True. Oh yeah, for you see like 2 files. So the first one is save.
Right. That'll be the InDesign file. And then the next one, you'll do an export, a file export.
Gotcha. Export. Maximum baseline 300. Wow,
Yeah,
it's already
you're good.
same thing for the other one too. Maximum and 300.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Professor.
You bet. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Professor.
Hi, David. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you? I was in earlier, but I wanted to like try and figure my assignment 102 out, but I couldn't. So I'm
Okay.
here to see if you can help me.
Sure. Happy to.
This is what I have so far. I need to share my screen, right?
Yeah, you do need to share your screen because I can't see what you have so far.
Okay. You can see it, right?
Yes.
This is what I have so far.
Okay.
But I'm having a hard time fixing the neck portion of this.
So
Or
you
what do you
have,
think overall?
oh, it's good. It's good. Let me request remote control. I need to digest this a little bit more.
Okay.
All right. I want to see what your, come on. Zoom. I'm going to stop and then request again.
Okay, sounds good.
What? How is it? All right, I'm going to make you share again. I'm sorry. Try it again.
Okay.
Okay, since it doesn't want to work with me, turn off the plant head for a second. Okay, and your background image, how did you take it? Were you standing there or not?
Yeah, I was standing there.
Okay, so you've kind of covered up the neckline with the
I tried using the what is it called? The
clone
healing
stamp,
brush
probably.
tool. No, the healing brush, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I think so. What I would do is I go back to the one where your head is there, and then I merge your skin tone into the plant. I think you're going to have a better luck because then your neckline is your normal, like actual neck, and that would then blend into the pot. Because otherwise, the only other alternative, turn the plant head back on, would be to basically extend the neck of the pot down into the neck of the shirt. Because right now the part that's missing is below the pot and above the neck of the shirt. Like we need a neck in there, and whether it's your own neck or whether we extend the pot, I don't know, but something needs to end up in there to fill that space. And I think it would be easier personally if you were trying to combine the neck, your neck into the neck of the pot essentially. But the alternative would be to try to maybe move the pot down a bit and then clone stamp that browner area so that you have some more. The problem is it's going to start to look like it's repeating itself because it's a lot of clone stamping to do.
How can I do I think I forgot what you said. Not extending the pot head, but
right. Then go back. Okay, so can you go to File and then Place and bring your original photograph in for me? You may have to clear the crop. So close the crop right now. Hit the cancel. Yeah. It's the little slash. Yeah, there you go. And then go to File and then Place. Place embedded, sorry. File, Place embedded.
Where is it at? Okay.
And then let's bring your original in.
Oh, I can't find it. I can't find it right now, but how would I with the
so you would bring that in, and then you'd essentially use your masking on that layer to mask off your head and the part of the neck that would basically blend into the pot.
Okay. Where the masking tool, which one is that one?
It's where you would be creating like you would on the layer. So on the layer that has your head on it, okay, you would click on the little square with the circle in it down at the bottom.
Right.
See, no, that
So-
one over. That one.
Uh-huh.
And then you would paint with, on that layer, you'd paint with black on the part that you want to become transparent.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you'd use your paintbrush tool and you'd paint the part that you want to become transparent.
All right, sounds good. I'll try that out.
Give it a shot and see.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
Have a good day.
You too. Manna, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Professor?
I'm doing all right. Let me hold on a second. I want to get into my grading so that I can mark you as being here. Got to start with the important stuff. And there you are. Perfect. All right. I got you checked off. How's it going?
Good, good. I had a quick question. So, I was trying to log into the remote desktop, but it's not letting me for some reason.
Okay.
Um,
What kind of error are you getting?
So it goes to launching, and then here, let me see.
Can you share your screen so I can watch?
Yeah. Let me see.
Huh. That's weird. Are you on a Mac or are you on Windows?
Mac,
And are you doing this in Chrome or in Safari?
Chrome.
Okay, try opening Safari and see if you can load it that way. I've
Okay.
had in the past, I've had a student with this similar circumstance where it wouldn't load in Chrome, but then it would load in Safari. So let's give it a shot and see if it'll do it.
Sounds good. It was working fine yesterday, but
Yeah, it could be just a fluke thing. The whole system could be down. I have no idea. I'm just, you
Yeah.
know, I'm leaning on issues that have been solved before. And so let's give it a shot and see. I'm going to stop your share because you're showing me Chrome and it doesn't do any good. So you don't have to show it to me, but just give it a shot in Safari and see if it works.
okay, gotcha.
While you do that, give me just a second. I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Sorry about that. Did it work?
No, it did not. It still gave me the same error.
Same error. Okay.
I wish if I was able to do it from the client. I don't know how to do it from the client. I always do it from the browser. Does that make
Oh,
any
you always do
difference?
it from the browser. Okay. Well, can you show your screen again?
Okay.
And let's see if we can't get the client to work.
So this is Safari.
Okay, so okay, just say okay. Up where your initials are in the upper right corner.
Yes.
Okay, go to account. And then see underneath Horizon Client, there's an install button. Click on that. And then you're on a Mac, so you're going to do the Horizon Client for Mac, and then below that there's to the right there's Go to Downloads.
Oh yeah, here it is. Okay.
There you go. And then yeah, you'll want to do that. I won't be able to see it because you're not sharing that part, but basically install that client.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. My question was just generally, so I was working on InDesign for the album, and then so when I made my album cover, let me see if I'm able to just at least pull up the album cover and then kind of show you what I'm referring to.
Sure.
Let me try. So this was my album cover. And my question was, I wanted to integrate that picture with the background, so where it doesn't, if you can tell the Michael Myers picture is a square, I wanted to kind of float in with the picture in the background.
I gotcha. So in InDesign, it's harder than in Photoshop because you don't have the same tools to like home stamp and mask and stuff. You do have blending modes, so you could potentially use a blending mode, but I don't think it would do what you're after. So in reality, you would do the edit of the clouds and the square image. You do the editing in Photoshop with a mask and kind of clean that up and combine it there and then drop it into the InDesign after.
Okay,
so it would be a Photoshop operation for the image, and then you do the layout with the text and stuff in after the fact in InDesign.
Okay, that's what I was trying to see, if there was anything in InDesign where I can kind of
no, they're designed to work separately from one another and in conjunction with each other. So the point is you should be using Photoshop and InDesign, not one over the other.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Because so what I did is I lowered the opacity, and then I also used the blending layer. But I was trying to see like if I could have it where it seems like it's one photo rather than it's two put on top of each other.
Right. Well, I think you're close, but I think some selective masking in Photoshop would probably blend the two together really nicely.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I was missing. I was just trying to figure that out, because it would have looked really nice if it was just integrated together.
Yes, exactly. Well, and if that's something you want to play around with just for the experience of it, if we can get the remote desktop to work, I'm happy to show you how I would go about kind of combining those in Photoshop.
Yeah, let me see. I installed the Okay, I was able to get it to work.
Good. I know it takes a while to get everything.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like a little bit slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, sorry. Thank you for
Yeah,
patiently
no, it's
waiting.
okay. Let's see if we can get it so that I have remote control. Let me request remote control.
Okay.
It hasn't been working well today, so we'll see whether Zoom has decided that it's going to let me do it. Ah, yes, it is. Okay, good. Excellent. So we have this one and we have this one. This was, okay. So we'll take this and I'm going to select the whole thing. Let's see. And we'll go to copy. And we'll come here and we'll go to paste. So we end up with one on top of the other. Then I'm also going to, on this background layer, I'm going to right click on it and say layer from background, which allows it to be unlocked. That lock sign will go away. Now I can actually work on it a bit.
Gotcha.
So let's, on layer one here, oh, yours was a square. So let's go ahead and crop it into a square. Why a square? 1:1. Just so that we can get the layout correct. Maybe like that. And then we're going to move. Come on. This down. Maybe like that. I don't like having his feet cut off.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So now what I would do on the layer one here, I'm going to click on this add layer mask, which gives me a layer mask. Then I'm going to paint with my paintbrush with black as my color right here.
Okay.
And I need a much larger brush. So let's go. And actually, I may need even larger. I'm using the bracket key on the keyboard to kind of visually see it.
Yeah, that's the one I use as well.
Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully start to blur the edge of this so that we can start to see the smoke coming through. So maybe like that, for example. And then what I'm going to do is I'll take this layer 0 and I'm going to duplicate it. So I'll duplicate layer. And I'm going to put it up on top. And I'm going to do the same thing with the layer mask here. And again, I'm painting, but this time this is going to allow me to keep some of the cloud on top of them, for example. So I'm kind of layering things up. So I'm choosing what's being shown, what's not being shown. More like that, maybe. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I've got this kind of covers up over the top, like of his foot and whatever, so he feels like he's more part of the crowd. That layer there is displaying that, and this is giving me the whole background right there.
So I have a question for the very first layer, the one on top. When you're using the paintbrush with black, it's only going to show what's the layer under, so it won't necessarily show the whole Michael Myers image, but rather whatever you already did on
right, whatever I'm already showing. Yes.
Yeah.
So if we were to turn these off individually, we could start to see, okay, so this first one, I've cut that hole there.
Yeah.
The second image, I have just that part of it showing. And the third image is in fact the whole image. So when I put this one on, that's the part of this image, the Michael Myers image that I'm seeing. And then this image on top is kind of covering over the top of that Michael Myers that I was showing before.
Yeah.
And that's just a way of layering it to make it more believable because this part of the cloud is in front of him. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's cutting.
Because otherwise he would look like he was just kind of standing there and he's not really part of the cloud. And if we wanted him to be part of the cloud, we need the cloud to kind of be enveloping him.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Kind of makes sense.
I like it. Yeah, so that's what I was gonna go about it with. In general, with like select like the masking and kind of cutting down the edges. But I was just hoping that it would kind of there would be some way to kind of integrate those in InDesign.
Right. So Adobe has chosen to keep those distinctly separate on purpose.
So
because they want you to use Photoshop to do this, and then you save this image and you drop it into InDesign to do the layout part.
Yeah.
So
that was my only question, but yeah, I appreciate it because I was just trying to make it like look super cool, kind of where he's in the background. Because like I was like thinking of a Halloween themed album.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Absolutely. All right, I have to go prep for my next class, so I'm gonna log off. But I think you got some good feedback.
No, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
No problem. You take care. I'll see you on Wednesday.
See ya.
All right, bye.